Jay here for Stretford Paddock. This is the Academy Review. Yes, we are back. There's no Dave Pritt, but don't fear. We have got Finn, Academy Scoop, joining us. A big thank you to Dave, by the way. Finn, thanks for coming on the channel. You go by the name on socials of Academy Scoop, and you've certainly lived up to that moniker. You have broke a few stories, haven't you, regarding the Academy players, because you do obviously take a keen eye in what's going on with the Manchester United youngsters.
Yeah, definitely. It's a pleasure to be here, so thanks for having me on. So over the summer, I was lucky enough to be well placed to kind of get ahead of a few stories. I think the main one that people might know me by is the Chido Obi-Martin deal. That was a massive one. It started off and there was rumours of him going to Germany. That was the main kind of rumour. And as time progressed, all of those rumours went quiet. And out of nowhere, I get a call and someone saying, Chido Obi-Martin's at Carrington today. So I'm like, blimey, all right. Turned out we were in advanced talks. He'd pretty much made his mind up. And with these academy deals, it's always a case of, investigations and, the Premier League's ratification process, and it's all very complicated. It's a very different system to, first team transfers. But yeah, I was lucky enough to get there first, and it was a crazy moment. I was on holiday, and within 2 minutes of each other, Fabrizio Romano and David Ornstein both go public crediting me for the story. It was a pretty special moment for me.
Wow, that's amazing. The two tier oneers of the tier ones, the two top dogs, Ornstein and Romano, tweeting you. I bet your phone was just non-stop, wasn't it?
Yeah. I had to turn it off because I was a bit too excited. I got caught up in all of it, but
yeah, definitely. Well, this is one of the reasons, you've been chatting for a little while now. We wanted to get you on the channel because you spoke about the Academy Review. You said to us you'd watched it in the past, and at the same time, we're like, look, we want to bring it back. Dave, unfortunately, is doing other stuff with Stretford Paddock FC, so it seemed like the perfect time to get you on the channel every week, talking us through what's going on with the Academy. A bit of a quieter week, the week just gone past, though, because of the lack of games, more international games. What's been happening in terms of Manchester United's youngsters?
Yeah, so this weekend we only had the 18s playing, no 21s game. Most of what was going on was backdating to the internationals from the break. A few interesting stories there. But yeah, another top win on the weekend for the 18s, 5-1 against Newcastle, kind of carrying on in the same fashion that they have for the last year and a half or so. But yeah, it was a tricky one because this weekend there was no MUTV coverage. Usually, if a game isn't shown because it clashes with a Premier League game, they'll still, follow up with some post-match updates and, a bit of a match report. This weekend we got nothing, so there's a lot of frustration there from, people who do tune into the games, because that's a really important part of a lot of fans' kind of, reason for tuning in, especially for MUTV. So I think there's a few problems going on within the club to do with the resources allocated to that academy coverage. Hopefully, it's not going to be a permanent issue, but it's definitely been frustrating. Not to have that same level of kind of high quality coverage in the last few weeks. But yeah, I think the internationals is a good place to start. We had Scotland's under-19s, Tyler Fletcher and Dan Armour, two really. They're players that I love. Obviously, Tyler, the son of Darren Fletcher, and Dan Armour he's a left-sided defender, and he's 16, and he got called up to the under-19s, which we see it a lot at club level, but for an international to be called up years above their age is a little bit more rare. So, I think it speaks volumes about how highly he's rated. But yeah, they had games against Azerbaijan, the Netherlands and the Faroe Islands. They didn't start in all of them, but they got cameos off the bench, and I've heard positive things. Dan Armour actually picked up a goal against Azerbaijan. So, apparently he's 6'4", so he just towers into the box, and 6'4" at 16.
I was about to say, I'm sure you just said he was 16. He's 6'4". Was he Joe Smith? Just on Tyler Fletcher as well, because obviously there's the added pressure of Darren Fletcher's your dad. Also, his brother plays as well. So How does he acquit himself of all that pressure? Is he someone who's just not living off the family name, I take it? He's just got that ability?
Yeah, there's accusations of them being, the twins being, Nepo babies, but it's a load of rubbish.
That's not how football works, though, is it?
Not.
Because it's like when people said that Charlie Savage was in the United side because of his dad. His dad that never played for United.
Nope.
That's not how it works. And,
No.
just because your dad's Robbie Savage doesn't mean you're going to get into the United team.
Exactly.
It doesn't make sense like that.
No,
I know
not
obviously
at all.
Darren Fletcher's more involved with the club than Robbie Savage was, but you're not gonna get to that level, are you? Unless you've got the ability.
You don't become an established under-18 player at United if you're not a top player, especially in the current environment. When you're winning trophies, this team is the strongest I've seen since I started watching the academy. You certainly don't establish yourself if you're not a real top player, and both Tyler and Jack are. They're quite different players. They've got kind of different skill sets, but I think they both seem like they've got their heads screwed on. They're not letting that kind of hype or link to the family name get in the way of their ability and their commitment. Tyler plays a little bit deeper than Jack most of the time. He's more of a kind of central box-to-box midfielder, likes to put a shift in defensively, whereas Jack is usually playing more as a kind of number 10, sometimes playing in from the right, more of a kind of creative midfielder. But they're both top, and any suggestions that they're here because of their dad is rubbish. There's nothing behind that at all, in my opinion. Yeah.
You mentioned there like how well the young team's doing and the youngsters are doing. It does feel like this is a real sort of, I don't want to say the golden generation of Manchester United. That's ridiculous when you look at the players who've had the Busby Babes in class of 92. But this does feel like a crop of youngsters who are special.
I think, especially in terms of tangible results and silverware. I think there's been a bit of a misconception because some people have gone out and said that the approach has changed. Obviously, because we've had fantastic players in almost every age group dating back years, but that consistent winning of silverware and results hasn't always been there. Under Adam Lawrence, this team in the last 2 years has won almost everything it can, but I don't think the approach has changed in terms of balancing player development and silverware. I think it's just an incredibly strong group. They have a fantastic coach in Adam Lawrence and his staff. He's a fantastic motivator, great communicator. If you're at a game, anyone will know this. If they've watched United's under-18s live, you can hear all of his tactical instructions, everything he's saying to the players, because his voice projects that much, and he's that much of a kind of clear communicator. Every player in their position knows what their role is. It comes naturally to them. I think that's one of the big differences between United's under-18s currently and some of the other teams in the league, who sometimes turn up to play against United and look a little bit lost.
Really?
Whereas the vision and the tactics of United's under-18s is so clear, and it's so effective. A lot of teams at this level, including the big hitters in City and Liverpool, they're struggling to find a way to kind of approach these games because it feels like there's nothing they can do. Adam Lawrence is behind a lot of that for me.
Good stuff, good to hear, and it's great to see the youngsters doing so well. In terms of internationals, obviously you spoke about the Scotland games there. Any other players involved?
Yeah. So we had Elyh Harrison and Ethan Wheatley called up to the under-19s. Harrison was he actually withdrew from the squad quite early because his loan move to Chester went through. So I don't think he was involved in any of the games. And Ethan Wheatley got on a few times for the 19s. And we had Bendito Mantato. What a name, by the way.
Well done for pronouncing that one. You did better than I can do.
Yeah, he was with the 17s, which is another incredible group. It's, for me, probably the best England group that there is at the moment. Really, really strong. We had Jacob Devaney, who was with Ireland's under-19s as well. Put in a couple really good performances, specifically against France, actually. There was a penalty that was won thanks to a fantastic ball from kind of deep in his half, right into the opponent's box, and his teammate went down, won a penalty. So he's having influence, making a name for himself, and I think it could be wrong, but I think it might have been his first involvement in Ireland's youth setup. we had James Scanlon of Gibraltar. Now, this was a good story. In the 96th minute of their game against Liechtenstein, he scored for the first team. So he's 17, and he's already getting involved with Gibraltar's first team. Obviously, they're not a very powerful nation when it comes to their football, but for anyone that age to be involved in the first team setup is, it says something about their ability. They're clearly doing something right.
Shades of Danny Higginbottom there. I remember he used to play for Gibraltar, if memory serves. So 17 years old in the first team, and obviously grabbing goal as well. That's pretty phenomenal. It really is. So it's sort of testament. I know, without being dismissive, it is Gibraltar. It is a smaller nation, but you're playing at the highest level.
Exactly.
So fair play.
Can't take anything away from him for it.
No, it sounds like then we've had some really impressive performances during the internationals from some of our younger players. And it'll be interesting to see how this pans out as well. And I wonder, when you mentioned there, was it Scanlon for Ireland and Devaney for Ireland? I wonder whether, when these players do well at that level, how far they are away from getting a sort of a route to the first team, because I think with certain teams now, they're looking at it and going, we want to make sure these players stick with us, because we've seen it in the past where England or someone else, I'm not saying that's the case, but other nations might try and poach them and offer them a route to the first team a bit quicker. Any more?
Yeah, so we had Jack Fletcher and Harry Amass, who were with England's under-18s. They played against France and Portugal, I think Switzerland, at the Lafargue tournament. Interesting name. I think a lot of people spoke about Harry Amass's performances in particular, particularly against Portugal. Some really bright showings, and his name keeps coming up again for good reason, because almost every time he steps on a pitch, there's so much quality there and so much promise.
I just wanted to ask you a little bit about Jack Fletcher, because earlier you mentioned Tyler Fletcher, and it looks like they're taking different routes when it comes to international football. Yeah,
I'm not sure what is behind that decision for Tyler to be with Scotland and Jack to be with England. I know that Tyler's played with England a few times, but it seems like that's the path that they've chosen. Obviously, Tyler in the same vein as his dad, going with Scotland. But yeah, they're both doing amazingly for themselves. Despite not being in the same group together. And yeah, it looks like they're just going to keep kicking on. Jack's come up into the 21s, having never really played at this level, and he looks like he's been there for years. He's slotted right into that United 21 side, and yeah, it looks like he's just going to keep improving, and sky's the limit for him, really.
I wanted to ask you about Harry Amass, because he's a player that we spoke to on pre-season. He's what impressed me was his performances just got better and better as the pre-season went along. You saw him in the first couple of games. You could see he was still sort of fine. Yeah, a bit shaky. I think he spoke to Steve a couple of times, and what impressed me about him as well is his attitude, his maturity, and his honesty.
Definitely.
There was a point where he kind of said, "Look, I didn't have my best game today," and then there was a couple more performances later where he was just shining. Everyone was like, "Look, this kid." I mean, I've said it myself. The sort of argument is, if he wasn't 17, he'd probably be an option for the first team, especially with that lack of left backs. I mean, what have you made of his trajectory and what you've seen of him so far, including what you watched, what you've heard through the international break?
Yeah, so right from when he joined from Watford, he was always really highly rated, and he came to United, and he just hit the ground running. Every time he came on for the 18s last season, he just oozes quality. Defensively, going forward, his technical levels, it's all at a really, really high level with him. And I don't mean to put pressure on his shoulders, but there are kind of shades of a young Luke Shaw. Obviously, Luke Shaw actually mentioned him as a player to look out for in the youth setup. But he's got that kind of stocky build, a bit explosive in the first 5 yards. He can play a ball in behind. They get that lovely curve on it, him and Luke. And yeah, I think if I was to point out any player who's likely to establish themselves as a bit of a kind of first team regular this season, it would probably be Harry Amass. Especially considering Shaw and Malassia's fitness worries. There are some doubts as to whether Malacia will ever come back to the level that he was when he joined. So I think there's a real route for him there, and he's full of potential. But obviously anything can happen, and I think he should just be allowed to continue to develop the same way he is. Getting the odd first team cameo off the bench would be good for him. We'll see against Barnsley tomorrow if he's involved. I think there's every chance that he could be. He's really one to look out for.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing more of Harry Amass. I've been impressed so far. Like I said, not just his ability, but the way he carries himself. And he's an exciting fullback, like you said. That explosive pace, that sort of risk-taking. He's willing to try something that isn't the most
forward.
Easiest option. But
absolutely.
He's very much a front-foot defender as well, aggressive, which as a fan, it's great to see. Finn, it's been great chatting to you, by the way. I've loved this as our first Academy review, the first of many. We'll get you in again next week and we can go for it. And hopefully we'll have a few more...
bit more to talk about
next time. In terms of, the United games and the under-18s and under-21s, of course.
Sure.
And hopefully Man United TV can get the finger out and get that footage that you need.
We'll see.
You're looking to get into those games as well, aren't you? And sort of, start going along and watching them. Hopefully. So fingers crossed. If you don't know where to find Finn, I'm sure you do, but go and check out Academy Scoop on your social media. We've tagged him in it. So go and check him out there for all the latest news around Manchester United's Academy. And plus, we'll be back next week. So make sure you are hitting like, share and subscribe. That's been Finn. I've been Jay. This has been Academy Review. Back again. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.